This meeting is being recorded.
Greetings and welcome to Mount Olympus. I am Hercules Invictus, and today we are gathered together for our monthly Living Theurgy Forum. I'm here with Jean-Louis de Biasi, with Apollonius, and with Tony Mierzwicki, Theurgists all. And today we're going to start with an update on all our adventures into the higher realms. So Jean-Louis, you're doing many exciting things. Do you have an update for us?
Maybe the first one is not really about theurgy, even if there are some connections, because I will give a presentation, a lecture for the Llewellyn event. And this is on the 23rd of June at 10:30, I guess 10:30 PS Pacific time. I am okay for the day, not for the time. And it will be about esoteric Freemasonry.
Oh, so, awesome.
Even if this is not per se about theurgy, I will connect some theurgic practices with esoteric Freemasonry, and the way a Mason that wants more than the usual symbolic ritual can use some theurgic tools in their rituals, in their initiations, and so on. Excuse me. So I will connect these two things during the lecture, and the lecture or the presentation is about around 20-30 minutes. With a short practice, guided visualization during 5-10 minutes. And it will be the presentation next week. So beside that, I am working a lot with my wife, Patricia, on the website of the Hercules, and trying to present theurgy as a whole system, not just restricted to rituals or gods and goddesses, but see every aspect. And we find 8 categories or 8 rays of the great star, in which we can really learn each aspect of theurgy. It could be, for example, the use of sacred sounds and chants and overtones and so on, and this is one module. The use of guided meditations and deep relaxation and so on, and this is a second one. Rituals is another one, and there is 8 like that. So for me, rituals are not just theurgy, but theurgy is the world system. But if we apply this kind of thing, we can focus on an aspect, and after combining everything in a specific practice. So we are working on the website. We are working to connect that with what we call Mediterranean yoga. This is similar to theurgy as a world system. And so connecting with the world of yoga and see with the Western vision, Western philosophy, what are the characteristics we have? And there are a lot of things that we do better. Really.
Well, this is an act of theurgy in and of itself. You're bridging the light from antiquity through yourself and your actions, and you're anchoring it in our world and allowing it to come forth. So that is phenomenal. And
I can give you just an example. In yoga from the East, they have what they call asanas, postures. We can have movements, but if you look on the walls of ancient Egyptian temples, you already have a lot of positions that are similar, and some linked to gods or goddesses are very, very powerful, very useful, because you can connect specific visualizations and breathing. So for Isis, Osiris, and so on, you have movements, you have postures. And you can use that as asanas in a sequence, in a flow, associated with breathing and visualization, and you obtain something that is really Western and very effective. So this is the work we are doing right now.
That is awesome. And I experimented a little bit with what you're describing. I had read a couple of books about ecstatic body postures. And it's very similar to doing asanas, except it was a shamanic focused exercise. And I started applying it to the statues of Hercules and using those as my my asanas. And then I went to more pop cultural, iconic, modern versions of that. And the whole journey, which took a few years, was phenomenally instructional. And it's true, by keeping the position and putting yourself in certain states of mind, you access, you know, all sorts of very interesting energies. So I love to see where you're taking that. It sounds phenomenally exciting. You are also, you had a training for people that culminated in an initiation recently. How did that go? Jean-Louis? Jean-Louis, I believe you froze up on us. Okay, we'll return to Jean-Louis when he reconnects. Speaking about taking antiquity and bringing it back to us, we have Apollonius, who, with the recent publication of his book, opened up knowledge that was missing from our culture for very many years. How is the journey now that the book has been published, Apollonius?
Well, it's coming along. This is and since I've got the book and you mentioned it, I'll hold it up here. I see if I can not do too much of a disappearing act. But it's called Secret Texts of Hellenic Polytheism, a practical guide to the restored pagan religion of George Gemistos Plethone. And his book was largely burned. About 2/3 or 2/5 of it survived. There's been no English translation of the remaining parts until the one I did in this book. So the book came out at the beginning of May, and I've been involved in a number of activities really around the, not a formal book launch per se, but a number of activities involved with it. So I've done a number of interviews on some other podcasts. I'm writing some articles, you know, that basically talk about particular aspects of his religious system, or you know, present some of the practices and so on. I should say, you know, for anyone who's unfamiliar with him, he lived from about 1355 to 1452, and basically he had designed what we might now call a neo-pagan religion, based on ancient Greek religion and based on Neoplatonism as a philosophy. And he kept this a secret and taught it to a few students apparently during his lifetime, but mostly kept it a secret. And this was only discovered after his death. And he lived in Byzantium. And of course, this was considered a great crime, you know, to be essentially promoting and practicing a pagan religion at that time. But nevertheless, his book was kind of an inspiration to a number of people in the what became the Italian Renaissance, and people such as Marsilio Ficino and Pico della Mirandola, who later, you know, developed many of these sorts of theurgical and magical techniques further in the Renaissance. So, and he presents a whole religion. I mean, there's a very comprehensive and sort of rational theology he presents in terms of understanding the gods, what their natures are, and how they relate to each other. He gives a complete calendar with a series of annual and monthly holy days. He has invocations. He has a set of 27 hymns for various purposes, and a whole sort of system of worship set up. And so it's really, a complete and comprehensive religious system. So I'm very excited that that book's out now, and as far as I know, it's still the only complete English translation of the remaining parts of it. And well, so that's it. And so I've been working on that and some papers related to that and theurgy more generally. The past 3 weeks I've been traveling. I was in Rome for a week at a conference and just traveling around Rome a bit. And then I spent 2 weeks in Greece, in Athens primarily, again at a conference presenting some material on Plethone, and got to take a day trip to Mistras near ancient Sparta, which is what this picture is behind me, and climbed up to the castle on top of the mountain there, where Plethone spent the last part of his life. So I got to make sort of a pilgrimage to Plethone's last place where he lived. And so that was pretty exciting. And it's just a remarkable place. There's a lot of ruins, the castle behind me, but also the despot's palace, and a number of Byzantine churches, and various sorts of medieval ruins. And interestingly enough, this castle is where Goethe, in part 2 of his Faust, set the scene where Faust resurrects or invokes the shade of Helen of Troy.
Oh, wow.
So, and that's always been one of my favorite works of literature too. Very interesting alchemical kind of text. So anyway, so that's, I'm a little bit jet lagged still from just having got back a few days ago from Greece, but I had a really exciting trip there. I haven't been there in a while, and so I got a chance to see a lot of things that I hadn't seen in a while, or some new things. The Acropolis Museum was built since the last time I was there, so I hadn't even seen that museum. So I've got coming up, I mentioned some interviews. I'm also going to be presenting at a relatively new conference called Mystic South. It's a little bit like Pantheacon for people who have been to that, but it's in Atlanta, and it's July, I believe the dates are July 15th to 17th. And so I'm going to be doing 2 presentations there, one on Plethone and his religion, and I'll be doing a workshop on the Theurgy of Eros. So basically using the ascent by love from Plato's Symposium as a theurgical practice, and I'll be doing that. And I'm also, Llewellyn's going to have a suite, and I'm going to do a little presentation there on practical ancient Greek dice divination. So I've given a talk on that in the past. And that actually relates back to my previous book, The Oracles of Apollo.
Mm-hmm. And as you've moved through life, you've been an anchor for all of this. Also, you've given us 2 scholarly websites that have a phenomenal amount of information, and then you gave us divination systems, the complete divination systems and comprehensive divination systems. Then you gave us a new way of looking at 3 distinct ancient philosophies, so that they act like a stepladder to bring you to point A to point B and to point C. And now you brought us Yemstos Plethon, his missing religion. So it seems that your mission in life is to gift us with these things and bring them back into the world. And you've been doing this for a very long time.
Well, that is really my purpose, is, I investigate these things because they're of interest to me. How do we practice these ancient religions and these ancient spiritual practices? How do we make them work today, but based on what we can understand about the ancient practices? And so I figure, if it's something that it's of use to me and of interest to me, then maybe it is for other people too. And so, depending on what it is, I either put it out on my websites, or put them together as a book, if that's more appropriate, or both. Often a lot of this, for instance, some of the Plethone translations are out on my website. And really most of my books have in some sense started out as information out on the web, where, I hope people will see it and use it. So that is kind of my mission, I guess, in this business.
And it's a mission that you're fulfilling awesomely. And thank you. Jean-Louis is back with us, and I had left when we were speaking last. It was with a question. I believe that recently you offered a training that culminated in an initiation. How did that go?
Yes, I offered several trainings, and it was really good. But the training that we were supposed to do in Dallas, we canceled and rescheduled because Patricia and we got COVID, and we had to cancel the trip. So it was, we tested positive 3 days or 2 days before the weekend. So this weekend will take place again, first weekend of August. Yeah, a good chance. So I will say more about it in August, but not
Next
now.
time.
Yeah,
Understood.
yes.
And also, I see that you've begun asking people to gather together in prayer for troubled spots in the world. And
Yes.
I don't know if it's the extent of communication we currently get or not, but we're being inundated with historic earth-shattering events on a very continuing basis. So we do need to do that. So thank you for doing that. Can you share a little bit about how that new path is unfolding?
Yes, we have a very simple and focused ritual altogether, using a specific prayer beat, invoking the power of the sun, because the sun is welcoming anyone, no matter her or his faith. We are doing 2 rituals, spiritual assistance per month. And this month, one was dedicated to Ukraine and all innocent people who are killed in Ukraine. And the second one is for anyone who requests spiritual assistance. And what I mean by spiritual assistance, any need someone can have, physical, moral, spiritual, and so on. So they can go on the platform of their own Solis, they can click, send with a Google form, this is my trouble, this is what I need, can you help me? That's it. And at the beginning of the practice, I read, if they agree, I read the first name or the last name or both, and then we do the practice that lasts with a guided meditation and this mantra and Giro Torte Sol Chiklos, which is a solar invocation we can find in the baptistery in Florence on the pavement. This invocation of the sun, and we do that. But what I want to add is, yes, this is the second or the third ritual we did to support Ukraine, to help finding peace and so on. But in the same time, we have brothers and sisters in Congo Democratic Republic, and they have.
Jean-Louis, I think you froze up again. You're still there, okay. You're frozen up for like a few seconds.
Yes, I was saying that unfortunately, this is not the only conflict in the world. And we have brothers and sisters in Congo Democratic Republic, and they have really violent events in the east of the country. It's going on for years, but this is even stronger right now. So Ukraine, yes, and this is very important, but not really limited to this country, unfortunately. So we will have the opportunity to work for other countries too. And this is fortunate to do this kind of practice and unfortunate to have to do it.
Right. I do something on a much smaller scale on the social media. I do a planetary thing, a blessing and a challenge every day for each of the classical planets that are the Imerontime. And then I occasionally post something that if anybody has a prayer for anything, really, anything positive, you know, we will gladly post it and pray for them. And if they want anonymity, it'll be someone in our number. And if they want their name there, I'll tag them. You know, it's entirely up to them how much privacy they need. But people seem to get comfort from it. And even like the podcast, the intention of the podcast, and it's hard to tell what effect they're having with the podcast, but recently one of the shows that I do, one of the hosts got a letter from someone in prison saying how they're a big fan of mine, and watching them on my podcast help them change their life and make it more positive. So again, we do these things, we don't really know, you know, who we're touching, but it's always good to hear that somebody responded and that their life was impacted in a positive way. So I love what you're doing, and I guess keep doing it. It's fantastic.
Yeah, what I can add, this is something that one is live on Zoom. So this is not recorded. This is just 30 minutes, almost 30 minutes. When this is organized, and second, this is open to everyone. That means everyone can request assistance, but everyone can participate live. Mm-hmm. And then when this is finished, even we do not record. This is just a live event, finish after that. Awesome. So it makes something that a kind of spontaneous community of some people who want to share this action, this visualization. And this is a unique thing, and makes the event different, in fact, to not even record, to just have this experience together, 10 or 20 or less, depending the time, and from different countries, because we like to record and so on, and we do that right now and sometimes, but in the same time, to have something that is happening, but you know this is now, here and now, and after this is done, the assistance has been performed, and you release all the powers. And this
Okay, we'll come back to Jean-Louis when he is able to reconnect. Tony Mierzwicki, who is like a wandering speaker and a wandering bard with his writing on Pathos and his talking at gatherings, both virtual and real. What is new with you, my friend?
You're way too kind. I wanted to start off with a couple of comments. The first is I'm really glad that Jean-Louis is doing a talk on esoteric Freemasonry, because esoteric Freemasonry actually had a very big impact on a number of magical streams. The one that most obviously comes to mind is the Golden Dawn, where the initial grades in Freemasonry are pretty well indistinguishable from those of Freemasonry. And I was also going to talk about how excited I am about Apollonius's book finally coming out. As Brandy and I have mentioned on previous podcasts, she and I attended Apollonius's talks at Pantheon, and we were sitting there enthralled and anxiously awaiting for the book to come out. I think I'm the only one who hasn't gotten a copy yet, but Apollonius has told me that he's going to send me out a PDF in the next couple of days. So I'm really looking forward to going through it and reviewing it. Really looking forward to that. And when Apollonius was talking about giving workshops on divination, it reminded me of when I first met him. I was I'm pretty sure this is the first time that I met him. I was giving a presentation at Pantheon on ancient Greek divination, and I wound up referring to a translation which was available online of a particular divinatory system. And once I started talking about it, a hand shot up, and it was Apollonius, and he was saying, I did the translation. So all of a sudden, the whole room looked towards him, and he spoke for a few minutes and, expanded on what I had to say about it. So I'm pretty sure that was when we first met. So that was actually a lot of fun. So regarding me, I've just been cranking out blogs, not as many as I'd like to. And you and I, that is you, Hercules, and I are going to be presenting at WitchCon. Is it WitchCon or WitchFest? WitchFest, I think.
Witches Fest 2022.
Witches Fest 2022. And so when I first applied, I was told to submit 2 possible workshops, and turns out that both of them were accepted. So I'm going to be talking about Aphrodite and also about the nymphs. So I'm looking forward to presenting those. I'll be doing those online. And currently I'm reviewing a book that's been put out by Oberon Zell Ravenheart, who's been around since the early 1960s. He founded the Church of All Worlds, and he also had a very prolific magazine called Green Egg, which is still going. And in the early 1970s, he came up with a version of the Gaia hypothesis. So when most people think of the Gaia hypothesis, they think of James Lovelock, who was a researcher working for NASA. And he basically postulated that all the systems on the Earth are interlinked, so you can't really look at them separately. So you've got to look at climatology and geology, life forms and everything else together. And privately, James Lovelock has admitted that he actually does see the Earth as being a sentient organism. So not only are all forms of life interlinked to each other on the Earth, but they're actually linked to the Earth itself. So which means that there's very little difference between what he and Oberon are saying, because they both started to get their ideas together in the early 70s. And so basically what they're doing is that they're reconciling science with religion. Because if you think of Hesiod's theogony, the earth, the void, everything are thought of as personified deities. So everything pulses with life in ancient Greek, in the ancient Greek creation mythos that we find presented by Hesiod. So thanks to the work that he's doing, we can actually see it's not just a theory, it's just not just a quaint way of coming up with a creation mythos, but we are looking at entities which really are alive. So I think that that's something that we could adapt into our personal rituals and enrich them. So we're not just dealing with inanimate objects. Reminds me very much of animism. Also that Japanese practice where they see spirits everywhere. Mind you, you had the same thing with the ancient Greeks. We had spirits in the trees, spirits in bodies of water, rivers, and everything else. So I actually see it as a very exciting sort of development. I've given workshops on it before, but it's nice to see it's still being carried forward. So that's a snapshot of what I've been doing, what I'm up to.
Sounds awesome. In Greece, at least the Greece of my younger years, I haven't really gone to Greece in a very long time, but in my younger years, people believed in the nymphs and the satyri and the kalikansari and the aerika and the xotika and the nymphs. They were still there and very much alive. and the story that they would tell foreigners who asked about these things, Xeni, is, oh, nobody believes in that stuff anymore. But as soon as the Xeni weren't around, they'd share their personal stories of these things. So the daemonists, the intermediate spirits, were very present in people's lives, especially like at Christmas time when the Calicáncer would come out and they would pee on the people's food. And so there were all these things always going on with the spirits. And I had a Magos on one side of my family, and then I had another person who had the power of the evil eye on the other side. They both made it into the folklore of the island. So these things were very much alive and very much part of life. And I grew up believing in that because it was all around me all the time. So it gave a context to my own experiences and an explanation for them. But yes, the world is alive. And if you've been taught to look at it that way, then that's how your mind interprets it, and that's what it becomes. So I'm glad you're doing that. That is a great thing to be doing.
Yeah, very true. It's been claimed that the nymphs were the first entities to be worshipped in ancient Greece. So the other gods came later. With the coming of Christianity, the ancient Greek religion was pretty well forced underground and largely disappeared. And it seems that the nymphs are still being venerated in outlying villages with old ladies coming off and making offerings to them. So they're the most persistent and longest worshipped entities that we have in ancient Greece.
But, you know, I don't know how true it is because, again, in the Greece of my youth, Greece is probably a very different place now with social media and computers and things like that. But a lot of times you hear people say, you know, O Theos of Rondai, the god thunders, you know. So what god thunders? And the idea of God is a white-bearded and white-haired gentleman sitting on a throne that is all pervasive and is much mocked in our culture. Who has white hair and a white beard and sits on the throne? So I really don't think that the gods went that far away. And again, although I don't share very much about my experiences with Greek secret societies and things like that, I have been told straight out that some of these organizations exist to prevent the 12 from getting a handhold on people's hearts again. So they very much believe in the 12 and their power to have set up organizational structures, you know, to diminish their power among the people. So I don't know. And to us, the gods are very much alive. And they weren't weak and feeble when we found them. They were in their full glory. So I think that even though our attention was diverted away from them in some ways, they survived in our popular culture and they're on the lips of everyone. I don't think there's anybody globally who doesn't know who Zeus is or Aphrodite, or, you know, so yeah, I don't know if they went anywhere or they were hidden, or yeah, they might not have been focused on as much, but I don't think they went anywhere.
Exactly. I'm very pleased that there are so many Hellenic reconstructionists in Greece who are bringing the worship back. But that's in a very traditional sort of way. But as you've pointed out, they have survived in popular culture, Hollywood movies and the like. So they're not going away. They're definitely back.
So it sounds like you're doing exciting things, and that is fantastic. The elemental kingdoms and the folkloric entities deserve a lot of attention, and a lot of wisdom is carried on in their tales. Like I remember growing up with these like bedtime stories, and they contained a lot of folk wisdom and common sense type of things, and sometimes not so common sense. So I'm glad that through pop culture they're again on everyone's mind, and that doesn't seem to be abating. And there's fantasy role-playing games now that have techniques that are very old that allow you to interact with mythologies in a very profound way. I've been playing with that for the past, I guess, since 1975 as well. And that is a phenomenal type of thing because it's interactive storytelling. It becomes interactive mythology. I've taken people on the Jason voyage a few times in that time, and occasionally we'll bump into some kid who was a kid, now is an adult with kids, and they talk about when they sailed with Jason on the Argo, and they, it becomes something very real that they treasure and that they think back to, and they can refer to with other people. So I think it's very powerful.
I think so too.
On my end, what I've been doing is, aside from trying to finish my chapter in the book, and I've run into all sorts of interesting snags, which will ultimately make my chapter a lot better, but it's been very frustrating to try to get it all together. And I ended on a weird note, which I don't know how I got there quite. So before I submit it in a week or so, I want to see if I could change the ending a little bit. I'm also doing the Witches Fest. In the Witches Fest, I'm doing stuff that comes from I developed a 3-level system over the years, and I've run it a bunch of times in New York, in New Jersey, in Pennsylvania, in Northwestern New Jersey. I actually ran all 3 levels of it, so now they're asking for me to do it again. The first level is called the Cave of the Centaur, or Chiron's Cave, sometimes it's called, and it's basically the heroic training that Greek heroes, whether they were royals, children of the gods, or anyone else who wind up with Chiron, and they get to look at like the questions of like, who am I, what do I want, and is what I want what you want, so that we can do something together. And then after they go through that, they go on an Argonaut voyage, which is usually we work together on some social thing that is bothering everybody. Like is it clean water? Is it plastics? Is it mental illness? Whatever that particular bunch of people considers very important to do, we go out there and we do something. And then if they succeed in that, we do other things afterwards. And so I've been asked to do Chiron's Cave again, so I'm going to do Chiron's Cave again. I'm setting up new Argonaut voyages for us to go on. And what I decided to do was to make what I talk about in like Witches Fest more pointed toward what I'm currently doing totally. So I'm not just randomly spreading information, but it all ties together. So I took 2 of the sessions from Chiron's Cave, one of them on power animals called the Island of the Enchantress, or Circe's Island, or again, a bunch of names. And the other one, which is the Greek world tree, or the world pillar, or the world mountain, all the different realms that connect in Greek mythology, or similar to how they do in like Norse mythology or the Kabbalah, using that tree structure. And there was a tree structure in the Greek material, but only vague references of it remain, so there's not much known about it. The only piece of information I've been able to find over the years was that Kalikanzari served like the same function as the deer do on Yggdrasil, where the deer are, munching on the tree and eating its leaves and causing it discomfort and pain. The Kalikanzari somehow do the same thing with the Greek world tree, but there isn't really much more than that. I used that and used the other systems around it, because the Hebrews were not that far away in the Mediterranean, and the Norse wandered down there a few times too. So, gleaning insight from both other world trees, or trees of worlds, I kind of recreated a Greek one. It's the second one's going to be on that, and it's going to be very basic and just talk about the different types of energies that enter into the Greek spiritual landscape. And that ties into my doing Chiron's Cave. So if they want to do the whole thing, they can come to Northwestern New Jersey, where I'm doing it. And I'm also going to do at one point a version of Zoom, on Zoom, so people can participate from farther away. And also, I gave up my presidency in a local library in the Friends, because it underwent a change of directorship. And under the old directorship, we were running the interactive stories there. We were getting grant money to build a Greek amphitheater in the backyard to do plays. We're doing all these great things, but the new leadership, and I gave the new leadership a chance to see if they eventually like go that way, it became obvious to me after a couple of years that they're really not going in that direction. So my energies are taken elsewhere, and I'm going to construct an Athenaeum on Zoom. So an Athenaeum was like in antiquity a combination between a university, a library, and a museum kind of. So I'm going to try to recreate that in social media, and then hopefully build something more permanent, a structure, I hope. But I'm really like looking forward to taking all of your life work and curricularizing it. And then I know that Jean-Louis, he's actually getting a building, and he's going to be, building a community, so people can go that way if they wish to. And your stuff is available in bookstores, Apollonius, and you speak, and you have the websites, and so I'm going to talk to you and seek your wisdom in terms of curricularizing what you've released and recommending like an order. And then if you, in order to read it and experience it in, and then if you have a direction that you're building to just funnel people that way if they'd like to explore it. And Tony, with your writings as well on Hellenismos and all the information coming out on the podcast and through your talk, if you're putting anything together, and even if it's just to let people know about the things that you're doing currently, so that they can follow it and take their knowledge further after they've explored what's online or in the printed page, that'd be a great thing for now. So that's what's going on in my neck of the woods.
Cool.
So I'm a dreamer. I like to dream, and I like to entertain possibilities, and I like to build things. And sometimes it takes years, decades. It takes a while to actualize some things, but I'm always busy working on them. And I guess before we close tonight, if you have a dream that we can build together, or a dream that we can help you with to actualize it, like for instance, with this is not much, but we do have the social media, we do have Zoom, we do have Blog Talk Radio. If you can think using those tools of something we can do either separately or together, I'm more than game at this point. So, and I've offered too, if you want to promote anything that you're doing, please feel free to post it, wherever you like on my pages. I give you blanket permission to do that. So if you can dream anything or further that dream, I would greatly appreciate it. And Jean-Louis is not returned. And let's see how we're doing on time right now. We have 15 more minutes. So I guess, what is your next big project, if you can share it? Apollonius.
My next big project is really a number of smaller projects. So I've got these workshops coming up, really essentially 3 presentations at Mystic South. I'm doing an article for the Llewellyn Magical Journal, and I'm actually revising the talks I gave in Rome and Athens, into larger and more finished papers. So that's going to keep, and of course our book chapter too. So that's going to probably keep me busy at least for the next couple of months. And I don't know after that, I'm interested in my long-term plans, as you were talking about, are really to keep promoting theurgy in its many forms as a spiritual practice. I really think this is something the world needs. Jung had the insight that if we don't engage with the gods within our imagination, which is really, in contemporary English, we think of imagination as being, oh, well, that's all make-believe. But the ancients understood imagination or fantasia as being this faculty of the mind between the higher faculties, the nous, and the discursive reason and the senses and so forth. And that was the medium through which the gods and daimons communicated with us.
Yes.
So it's very important to cultivate the imagination, the true imagination, as it's sometimes called. You know, so what Jung said is, if we don't engage with the gods and daimons and other spirits through our imagination, then they don't just go away. You know, they either possess you, you know, and often that is a bad possession. It's a possession it's not inspiration from a muse. It's something that's going to make you act out in some bad way. Or you tend to project those gods and spirits onto other people and onto institutions and so forth. And we see a lot of that in the world now.
Yes.
This is what has brought us some of these authoritarian leaders we see popping up all over the place, and a lot of the other social malignity that we see. So I think if more people practiced theurgy and did their inner work, then there would be less of that. Now that's a big hope, because you know, a few of us can do theurgy. That's fine. That's wonderful. But we really need it to be more of a common practice for people. And so that's my long-term goal. And so many of the other things I'm working on are directed towards that longer-term goal, because I think that's what we need for the spiritual and psychological health of humankind in the 21st century.
I agree with you, and I love the way you stated it. And you're right, the imagination is our most divine faculty, because you're taking something that's floating in the air or in the ethers, and through your imagination, you're able to bring it down to here and anchor it here and make it real here. And if you even just look around wherever you are, you're surrounded by products of the imagination. Everything is imagination. We live in imaginary systems of thought, and our perspectives on the world are imaginary. So we live in the astral, and astral means starry in Greek too, so it was thought to be something heavenly, something celestial, and not something base, or they didn't trivialize it like we do. It was something that connected you to the heavens and made you yourself divine.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we're on the same quest, Apollonius.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tony, how about you? What is your dream that you'd like to share and recruit for?
My dream, I suppose, like Apollonius, I would like to have more people being more serious about spiritual pursuits. I think that a lot of what we have in the modern world is a bit of a trap. People tend to be diverted from engaging in spiritual practices and following sports, following Hollywood stars and the like, whereas they really need to be doing some sort of internal work. I have been dragging my feet on putting out a sequel to my first book, Greco-Egyptian Magic, but I'm feeling really called to do that, to get a sequel out. I've got a couple of other projects floating about, writing projects which aren't really theurgical, but I may see if I can slip something theurgical into them. But like Apollonius, I'd like to see the world going back towards its spiritual roots, looking for something a little bit more significant, a little bit more real.
Do you think, I'll assign homework to all of us, if we could come up with like a few sentences that capture what everybody just said about their theurgic mission, we could announce that at the beginning of each show, and you know, make that our fulcrum or our North Star, so that this is what we're here doing, and this is where we want to go with it. I think that would be very powerful.
I don't think we can go beyond know thyself. I mean, that's the ultimate quest.
So put that in the sentence, and later time.
It is my wish that the world know itself.
There we go.
I don't know, man.
We are the Theurgists. We are here on a common mission so that men and women can know themselves.
Works
Anyway,
for me.
we'll work on that. I want to thank you both phenomenally. As always, I had a wonderful time, and this was uplifting and expansive. How can people contact you? We'll start with Apollonius.
The best way is through my two websites. One is opsopaus.com, and that's opsopaus.com. And the other is wisdomofhypatia.com. It's all one word, and Hypatia is Hypatia. And especially for my new book, the opsopaus.com is the place to go.
Thank you so very much. And Tony?
I have two Facebook pages. There's a personal account, and there's also an author's account. And on top of that, I have a blog which I write for Patheos called Holistic Spirituality, so people can keep abreast of what I'm writing.
Incredibly awesome. Thank you both very much. I had something I forgot to share. I'd spoken to this, I believe the last time or the time before. I was asked by my town to serve at the 4th of July celebration, the Independence Day celebration. So I'll be there in my old man in toga outfit, giving out lights, those bracelets that are lit up. So I thought the symbolism that was awesome, and I was very honored to be asked, and of course I accepted right away. Anyway, thanks to both of you. Thanks to Jean-Louis, who is not with us at this moment. Thanks to Brandy for everything she's brought to our collective journey. And thanks to you, viewer or listener. Until next time, this is us wishing you joyous journeys, amazing adventures, and remember, seek to know thyself. Okay, good night.
Good night.
Good night.